Warning, the following program contains thoughts and ideas that could easily offend. If you become easily offended by thoughts or ideas, please don't watch. Viewer discretion is advised. Bum bum!
Girl, hey, you go, girl. Da 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 da. Girl, hey, you go, girl. Baby, girl. Say what?
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Scrub Talk with Diesel, where I, Diesel, rail at you, the listener, about what it is to be a scrub and how to avoid it in the future. Basically, this is going to be a talk about high-level play and what you can do to become a better player. We'll talk about all kinds of things in future episodes about assessment of ability. We'll work on good decks versus good players. We'll talk about tournament etiquette and maybe some deck building tips. But before we start anything else, I want to get into the ideas that we will be talking about. We'll be using terms that you're used to hearing as an insult and I use as genuine, neutral talk about someone. So we need to talk about first, what is a scrub? So when I say the word scrubs, people wonder who I'm talking about in general. Everybody seems to have their own idea of what a scrub is, what it means, but I'm going to lay out terminology this episode that will carry on through every episode that I run. Scrub, in my mind, is not a hateful term. It is a way to assess someone's ability in a way that everyone can understand. Namely, scrubs are people who are, quote-unquote, bad at the game. And when I say bad, I want to make sure I'm perfectly clear. I'm talking about the highest competitive level of play. If you are not the kind of person who can go into a regionals tournament with the deck that you created for the day and win, or top cut, or even make it to the last round, then you are probably a scrub, at least in this definition. Now, a lot of people would say, why do you say bad? Why do you say not competitive? Why do you say that someone is bad if they can't get to the highest level? Or if they're consistently topping home tournaments, how could they possibly be bad? Well, I just want you guys to think about it logically. Look at yourself in the mirror. Hold up a deck so that you don't feel like you're berating yourself over something else. And I want you to honestly look at yourself and say, I am bad. If you can do that and not feel ashamed by where you are, by how far you've come, and how far you've grown, then you are in the right mindset to take scrub as an honest assessment of your ability and not be offended. If you can't, if you look at yourself and try to justify and you say, well, I'm a good player at the local level, or I'm not bad, I just don't get enough practice, or I'm not bad, I'm just not playing a good enough deck to beat everyone, you are probably a scrub. Figure it out and absorb it. Because the longer that you spend telling yourself excuses, the harder it is going to be getting better. The next word I want to discuss with you folks is the word Trihard. Trihard is often used as an insult against your players, especially when they win. But I'm going to tell you the truth, I don't like it used that way. This is what I think a tryhard is. Tryhards try too hard. Exactly what I'm talking about is that sometimes a player gets to a certain skill level and they think they're okay. And maybe they learned how to play on an S-tier deck, or they've learned the game on lower decks, but they kind of got the hang of it and then decided to go straight for the high-level decks. And they let the high-level deck take the place of actual skill. Those people who are mediocre with really good decks and allow themselves to think that they're good because they've won are called tryhards. Tryhard is not really a bad thing as far as local tournaments go. They think that they have gotten really good because they've gotten a few tournaments under their belt. And winning a local tournament is a great way of assessing your ability. But if you are the kind of person who will lose every time you try to play something that isn't the main S tier Kagero deck, or you're the kind of person who tries to justify their S tier deck every week to the players around them, there's a good chance that you might be a Trihard. And that's okay. Winning local tournaments is good. But if you really want to become a better player, sometimes you gotta play the decks that nobody plays. Sometimes you gotta think about building your own deck, or at least net decking at a lower level. Net decking, as most of you should know, is taking a copy of a deck off the internet. Also not a problem, but something that we need to think about. When you guys are playing at the highest level, you are taking a deck with you that you think has the capability of winning. But if you haven't learned how the game works fundamentally at the lowest level, then when you try to play at actual high-level tournaments, you tend to falter. These are the people who end up out in the first 5 or 6 rounds of a 7 or 8 round tournament. In general, these players will either be good players who had a bad day, or they will be tryhards who thought they were better than they actually are. If you are a tryhard, do not despair. This segment is for you. Next up on our list is the word luck sack. It's often used by players to criticize someone for having beaten them through trigger play. This is not what a luck sack is, and I want to talk about that for a minute. Look guys, we all get frustrated. Sometimes your opponent will hit triple crits, or they'll hit that miracle heal. They'll get that one grade 3 that they need in order to enemy that is going to destroy you. And that's okay. It'll happen all the time. Statistically speaking, it can happen because of the way the game is structured. But if you guys go around and calling every one of your opponents who beats you a luck sack, you are diminishing your own ability to play. Because you are blaming your losses on randomness, RNG. That's not a good thing. So let's talk about what a luck sack is. Well, a luck sack is someone who gets these things consistently throughout the course of most of their games, throughout the course of most of their tournaments, throughout the course of their entire life. If you are running into a person who has a good day, managing to hit crit triggers every once in a while, and hit the occasional miracle heal, it's a little sacky, and it gets frustrating when you're playing against it, but you shake hands and you move on. But do any of you have that friend who just always seems to hit exactly what they need? How many times you play them in a row, that crit's right where it needs to be. They don't hit any triggers when you've perfect guarded. It waits until you have to do a 2-pass, and then you see 3 crits. Or they get the grade 1 after you've destroyed their booster. That makes so much sense. They're only running 2 laurels, but it always seems to be in their first hand, along with another grade 1 for them to ride. This person is a luck sack. And playing against luck sacks is actually good for you, because you have to account for variance in this game. And if you want to be a really good player, you're going to have to beat every luck sack that you go against. And the only way to beat them is to play them and figure out how. So I figure, give luck sacks a break. They're doing their best. And it's not always their luck that is impeding your progress, if you know what I'm saying. The next happy fun time vocab word we're going to talk about is casual. We're not talking about casual in the tournament sense, but in the player sense. If you are a casual, you are what I like to call a happy fun time player. You like to play the game because the game is fun. And that is okay. The game is fun, and we should play it because it's fun. But one of the things that people get confused about is they use it to describe players who are novices, or somewhat unskilled in things. If someone comes in with a deck that isn't an S tier deck and then they get pounded on, someone will use casual in a derogatory sense. I don't think that being a casual is a bad thing, and I don't use it against my competitive players to make them feel small. But what a casual is someone who only shows up, for casual events. This would be fun specialized tournaments that your store has, or just weekly regular tournaments with nothing big on the line. These are the people who show up for free play or league play, if you guys do leagues. But if they go to a major tournament, it's only because it was close and it gives them some time to play the game they like. Maybe they're not going to do that great. And maybe they're okay with that. And that is the best part about playing a card game. If you can honestly sit and play the game just to have fun, why wouldn't you? And competitive players lose this sight in their mind when they start becoming competitive players. When you start playing at the higher levels, sometimes you forget what brought you to the game in the first place. And that is the joy of playing. You didn't come into this game to berate others or to make someone feel bad. Even if you came in just to win, you still don't want people to feel bad about playing against you. But competitive players will often berate casuals for being the person they are. The kind of person who wants to have a good time. If you are a casual currently, and you are thinking about becoming a competitive player, or you are a competitive player, and you are looking to up your competitive level, let me tell you this. In every major game that I've ever supported in the long run, the highest level of competitive players still enjoy the game. And they still play as if they're having as much fun as a casual. I suggest all of you do that with your own lives because it makes the game more fun to play on the whole. And the more fun that we have, the more players we have, which means the more people we have to test our good decks against. So try to say hi and be nice to the casuals that you know at your store this week. You never know, one day they may be fighting you on the world stage. And the last word I want to talk about today is the word cheating. Not to go on a tirade, but the word cheating comes up a lot when you're talking about card games. And sometimes it's justified, and most times it's not. So when you talk about cheating on the grand scale, you actually want to kind of shy away from the word as much as you can. We like to think that our highest level players are incapable of being a cheater because we don't want them to soil the game at the highest level by doing the wrong thing. But it does happen, and you will have to be aware of what cheating is and what cheating is not. And I'll go into that in a later episode for the most part. But let me talk a little bit about what cheating is not. If you guys have ever watched a video before on YouTube, especially of a card game, you might have noticed somebody doing something wrong with either the text of their card or the procedure of the game. A lot of times, these are misplays. That is, non-deliberate forms of cheating. They didn't mean to read the card wrong and execute the effect wrong. They didn't mean to pull the wool over the eyes of their opponent. And for better or worse, they didn't mean to make the play the wrong way that they did. But players who watch the game have no context as to the relationship of the players who are playing. If you were playing your best friend, and you know your best friend to be a trustworthy guy, you would never accuse him of cheating because he read 2 crit instead of 1. Or that he was accidentally picked up a 2 when he should have picked up a 1. These are things that happen. We're all human, and human error is a big portion of our lives. But if it seems like the misplays are happening past reminding, that you've told them how the card works, you've made sure that everybody there knows how the card works, you've called a judge and made sure that the judge is paying attention to the person, and they still keep making that mistake, then you gotta start wondering, is cheating involved? The other thing cheating is not, is luck. If your opponent is managing to triple crit you and getting you off of the board, that is luck, and luck is not cheating. Now, there are ways that people can stack their deck and make it so that you are not favored in the drive run. They can cut a certain way or shuffle in a way that spreads their triggers out just so. sometimes they'll even go as far as to move cards around. But your first reaction to someone beating you through luck should not be cheater. Cheaters are people who are intentionally and deliberately keeping you from winning the game through underhanded and illegal means. Everything else is just you being a bad sport. So please, when you guys are talking about cheating, make sure that it is not in an accusatory sense, but rather in a learning sense. When we come up across a cheater, we have to do two things as a player. One, educate the other players, because not every player knows what every card does, and they're much more likely to mess up on something if you don't tell them there's someone intentionally going around misinforming people on how to play the card. Get your judges involved. They are there to make sure that cheating doesn't happen. Also, when it comes to cheating, don't do it. If you guys think about the number of games that you've won because of a problem that came up, or a misplay, or a procedural error, or whatever, on your part, is it low? Do you feel good about those wins? If you do feel good about them, you've got to honestly analyze the way that you play. Cheating isn't cool. It creates rifts between friends, between players, and eventually it always catches up with the person who cheats. So please, please, don't cheat. And that concludes the first episode of Scrub Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I hope next week you'll tune in for an honest assessment of your ability. In the meantime, keep scrubbing.